Okay, and good evening to the Electric Reliability Committee meeting of July 8th, 2021. So, welcome, Dan. We were just talking amongst ourselves about engineering things, and this is dangerous. We got four engineers together.
Well, all I heard Jason was talking about tying in solar panels to the grid, and what I'm working and I've got all kinds of ideas going through my head right now because I started a graduate program at Stanford a couple of weeks ago. It's called Energy. I was actually taking a class before I signed in today. Called Energy Innovation and Emerging Technologies Program. It's all about the grid, renewables, smart technology, et cetera, and how to integrate all those. So we, versus Lee knows all about this too. The traditional utilities and how they integrate renewables into the whole system. So when I heard solar panels and how do you tie them in, that's the only part I caught, Jason. That's all I'm thinking about right now because I just got out of my class. So anyway,
how to get a sine wave out of pure DC. That's yeah. Anyway, I was hoping we'd have Jason Simon on. Bernie said he won't be attending tonight, so if Jason was here, we'd have 5 of us. But at least I think we've got a quorum. That right, Dan?
Yes, you have a quorum, so you can still have a public meeting.
So
you can still make votes and all that other stuff.
Well, the first piece of housekeeping is to say I have circulated the minutes. I've made changes. The last change I made, Lee, was to change 220 kV to 230 kV in the meeting. Although I don't think 10 kV out of 220 or whatever makes much difference. But anyway, so the assumption that you've all read the minutes and you agree with the minutes, do I hear a motion that we approve the minutes of the meeting of April 8th?
I'll make it.
That's moved by Lee, seconded by Jason McFarlane. All those in favor, raise your hands so I can see them. Do you agree, Dan?
I can't vote, so I don't raise my hand.
Well, what do you mean? Do we have a quorum then? So...
Oh, no, you do. You have more than 50%, so you have a quorum. I'm not officially a voting member of the committee. I'm just here to liaise.
Okay.
That's all. So I never vote on anything.
Okay. All right. My apologies. And the apology I've received tonight is from Bernie Grieger. He just said that he wouldn't be able, he's not available this evening. So I haven't heard anything back from Jason Simon. But the big topic, of course, is PICO. We had the meeting 3 months ago with PICO and Ted Durand. And we've got to, I think, keep going in that direction. Unless we get a solid contact with PICO, we're just blowing bubbles.
Yeah. So John, and you and I have both been in touch with Ted in terms of the minutes and making sure that his comments are incorporated. So I know that goes a long way to engage him as sort of a stakeholder in this meeting as well. In terms of the minutes. I'm glad we had this, you scheduled this meeting this month just because I don't think there's been a formal vote of any explicit recommendation to the board per se, to the board of supervisors, I should say, per se, relative to PICO.
Mm-hmm.
So, based on that meeting, and in order, I know we want to continue to engage PICO, both as this committee and the board of supervisors and the township in general, obviously. It would be helpful if there was a formal recommendation to invite PICO to a board of supervisors meeting to give a similar presentation and an update to the board of supervisors relative to the items discussed at this meeting with this committee. Like you, was that back in April, I guess?
Yes, April. Yeah.
Yeah. or something along those lines,
I
just
thought
so
that
it
was
can
the
be
original
formally
request, Dan.
included. Say again, Jason. I'm sorry.
I thought that was the original request, and then that we ended up getting Pico for us.
So this is where it's a little quirky. So yes and no. The original, very original approach was to just bring Pico in front of the board of supervisors and let us ask him questions, right? The township manager tweaked that a little bit, and I think it was a positive thing that he did do that, in that he asked the Ted, the Pico representative, to come before this board, which is obviously very knowledgeable, to ask questions, and it's get answers and follow up on things. The minutes from that meeting hadn't been approved yet, because that's just, you have to go to the next meeting to approve them. So that's sort of a technicality, but it's an important one, so that we make sure that we have all the I's dotted and T's crossed, to make sure that there is a formal recommendation supported by official meeting minutes that have been approved, to go in front of the board of supervisors to ask our board, my board, to formally invite Pico to follow up on all these items, address other items, etc. To just go through that and this board, I will say, is very sensitive to that process, let's say. So that's what we want to do. And I know we've talked about, there's been emails back and forth. I did want to update this group, sort of an aside, but related to that the Sunshine Act, the Sunshine Law that governs all of our meetings, public meetings in PA, has been updated just in the last week or two to be, I don't want to say more restrictive, but more prescriptive, maybe, in terms of what we can and can't talk about and how we can talk about it and whatnot. So it's very important that we officially make these, advisory boards officially make these votes and recommendations, even more so than it was before, to make sure that gets done.
I see we've been joined by Jason. Welcome, Jason.
Hey guys, sorry about that.
That's okay.
Here I am.
He's getting in his steps right now.
I did that this morning, but I apologize for being late.
That's okay. At least unfortunately, Jason, you're joining 4 engineers. So, or fortunately for us, are you there? You keep.
Yeah, I'm here.
Okay, yeah. We were just talking about what we need to do to keep Pico talking to us. Because unless we talk to Pico, unless we get Pico with us, we're just wasting our time. So, and Dan was just explaining that to get a formal meeting with Pico now, what are we going to do, Dan? We've got to.
Very, very basic. Approve the minutes, because that's, I think that's most kind of part of the minutes, to be honest with you. And then 2, make a formal recommendation to the board of supervisors to invite Pico to a public meeting, or any version of that you want to do, but essentially invite Pico to a public meeting in front of the board of supervisors.
So how do we do that? Do I
make a motion and vote on it? That's how I would. Yeah.
I make a motion that we bring Pico in front of the board of supervisors pending the approval of our meeting minutes.
Do we have a seconder?
Well, when we bring Pico in, do we have to specify what we want them to talk about? The reason I'm saying that is because they came in a few years ago, and it wasn't Ted, it was somebody else. There was an engineer, I think, came in, and they talked about not necessarily customer service, but I think like LED bulbs and stuff like that. So maybe we should say bring Pico in to discuss what?
Well, my thinking, Lee, is that since we met with them and we've got minutes, and out of those minutes, we have follow-up and questions specifically about that. I think that we should try to keep that focused. I mean, the challenge, I think, is the board of supervisors will be the ones that will be talking with Ted or whomever comes in. So, we're probably not going to be in a position other than to have them there to provide guidance to the Board of Supervisors to kind of control the content of the meeting. But I think it should be, in my mind, continuation of the conversation started with the ERC.
Yeah. The other way to say that, Jason, I think would to keep it general would be to discuss continuing reliability issues in Lower Makefield Township.
But I would also, Dan, recommend so that my biggest concern with Ted's conversational piece with all of us was, he's a pretty trained professional that is used to speaking to communities and folks like us and folks like you. And, I think that, I don't think if you think it's a problem that our motion that we are making says a continuation from the discussion started with the ERC that's now being elevated to the Board of Supervisors, I think that would let PICO understand that there's things that are on our record that, we want to follow up with, because it concerns me, to Lee's point, that they could look at that as an opportunity and come in and recommend to residents that they change their light bulbs twice a year.
I don't disagree with you at all, Jason. To Lee's point, I think they actually came in front of the EAC to give a presentation related to some sustainability green design stuff. I don't think it was the Board of Supervisors, but to your point, either in my mind, and obviously it to me, I would think about it the same way, either as you said, continuation of the discussion that was had with this group, or discussion of ongoing reliability issues in Lower Makefield Township, to me mean the same thing. But if we want to tie it back directly to the meeting minutes, to the items in there, that would be a little more prescriptive. I have no issue with that. Think.
Dan, can I ask a point of procedure question, or personal, whatever it's called? It's our committee, and we're the 4 active members that are here, so we could make whatever motion we want to make and pass it, and then you guys get that motion, right? Do you think it matters, I guess, is what I'm asking?
I generally I don't. It's just as the liaison, knowing the other board members and what they're looking for and what they're willing and able to do. I don't think I don't think there's much difference between the two. So I wouldn't, I'm trying to provide feedback from a board perspective as to what the board would be interested in and how they like to act. But I don't think the motion that you made is at all I think it's perfectly fine. I think it falls in line with what we're looking to do.
Could you paraphrase what the motion is, please, Jason, so I can make a note of it? You guys
yes.
Lost me.
Yep. I'm trying to remember exactly. Well, since it's not on record yet, I'll make it. How about I redo this, John, to make it easy?
You want to approve the minutes first, Jason? Maybe.
Sure. I make a motion to approve the minutes from I don't have the date, John.
That was the April 8th meeting of the ERC. Yeah.
I'd like to make a motion to approve the minutes from the April 8th meeting of the ERC.
Do we have a seconder? Lee seconds it. All those in favor? Aye. In fact, we already did this, Jason, before you started, but don't worry.
Oh,
we're now twice.
Yeah. Somebody told me to do it, so
I know.
I'm pliable. All right, and then I'd also like to make a motion that we make a formal recommendation to the Board of Supervisors to continue the conversation started with the ERC on reliability issues facing Lower Makefield Township with PICO.
Yep.
See what I did there, Dan? I got
perfect.
Everything.
It was perfect.
Yeah.
I knew.
I'll second that one.
Yeah, good. Okay. All those in favor, raise your hand. Good. We'll do that. Now,
Well done.
Proceed.
And I will. So, John,
how do we get that to the Board of Supervisors?
That's where I was going.
Yep.
So, one, you made the motion, so it's in the record. But if you could shoot a short email to Mr. Ferguson, our township manager, with the wording of that motion, and
Yeah.
copy me, please.
Yeah,
And then I will push that with the board and make sure to follow up with Mr. Ferguson to make sure that that's something we get done.
and from
I
that
actually
point-
think this is a really good thing to do, everyone.
Yeah.
Because I think the fact that like he met with us first, we've got some information in the minutes that we can refer to. Dan, I think that will help your board when you guys sort of lead that conversation. And I think the idea of continuity, which I think in the past probably has caused Ted and the PICO folks to not want to necessarily do these township-wide meetings, you know, is important because now there's some structure and I think organization to this.
Yeah.
Absolutely.
Just
I
my opinion.
100%
That's
agree.
just my opinion. Yeah.
Well, I think it largely is because in the past, public meetings have been have degenerated into shouting matches, and it doesn't achieve anything.
Yeah.
So,
Now would we want to, well, we don't even have anything on the schedule, but I would imagine, when are we meeting again? Next quarter, John?
every 3 months, yeah. So it's 3
Yeah,
months.
that's cool.
August,
Like-
in October. Let's say
Yeah.
October 8th, whatever. It's going to be the second.
Yeah, whatever it
Thursday in
is. I
October.
mean, I
Yeah.
doubt that this meeting's going to happen before then, but with the process, but it would be great for us to maybe provide outside of the minutes some talking points to the BOS. What do you all think about that?
I can certainly put bullet points in the email to
Yep.
Mr. Ferguson. Not too many because they won't get read. Yeah, I can summarize the meeting we had and the key points from the discussions we had with Ted Durand and put him in the email.
Are there any particular areas, Lee and Jason and myself and John and all of us, that we would want particular follow up on? I know that, like Jason, you had shared a string about everybody getting the tree trimming memos. I mean, so at some point,
Yeah,
I'm curious to know what they've done since those letters. How much have they actually trimmed? So
and
that'd
who
be
got
nice
them,
follow-up.
right?
Well,
Yeah, I
I've-
think everyone got one. I think just about.
Yeah,
Right.
I've seen a lot of trimming. I don't know, it's been going on over the whole township.
Okay.
Except I know that to Bernie Grieger's chagrin, they haven't trimmed the trees that he wants trimmed, but they've been doing a lot. Asplund, it's usually 3 or 4 trucks in a row, and they've been knocking down trees along Yardley Langhorne. I know they've been going down College Avenue past the golf course. I don't know where else, but they've been doing it for at least the past 5 or 6 weeks. So whether it was a result of our meeting with Ted Durand or not, I don't know, but certainly we'll take the credit and say it was. So it's up to them.
I actually-
Virtual pat on the back.
Yeah.
Well, no, I mean, I don't. I mean, he mentioned that this was going to happen, but I also don't think it was a pure coincidence that there was a little bit of activity after we had that meeting. I don't know if it pushed up the timing or not, but
Yeah, I think it may have done because he said it was going to happen in the fall, and I saw it within a few weeks of that meeting, probably late April, early May. They started on Yardley Langhorne Road. So anyway, one of the main points, let me just put this, the main point as far as I'm concerned in the meeting we had with Ted Durand, and it was your point, Jason, communications. That's the big thing that came to the fore, I think. People get very, very frustrated with PICO when the communication is poor. Simple as that. Probably more so than the frustration with the power being out. So
I agree. I think that what we shared with him was that I think there's an understanding that when there's an event, we might have one tonight, that the power may go down. But I think there was a lot of frustration over the ongoing timelines for restoration that was unreliable. And I think he had a talking point about how that was going to be improved.
Yeah. I guess in my wildest dreams, I'd like to think we could get with the Pico people who are working on the communication software to run some of the messages past us.
That had something to do too, if I recall, guys, with the smart meters, right? That they
Yeah.
would be able to be more efficient in identifying the areas than they have been in the past.
Yeah. Yeah, they know now with the smart meters, they know where the power is going to. Whereas before they knew in bulk where the power was going to. It was going to a certain substation, but beyond that, they didn't know where it was. So, yeah, big advance there. But, some of the messages we saw, we talked about it, I think, with Ted, I think the first message on any outage, if you go on the outage map, is, crews have been dispatched. And you don't hear much beyond that. I think it could be more folksy, like Pico trucks are rolling, something like that. But, whatever. It would be great to get with Pico, get a level of understanding and trust with Pico that we could work with them on their communications.
Dan, on a separate time, on a separate thread, but the same topic, it might open up some opportunity for Kurt or your board to ask questions about the kind of communication that you're getting at the township level, which is different than the consumers would be receiving through their, their apps or their updates. Because
right. No, absolutely, and quite honestly, Jason, we're not getting that much different communication. Unfortunately, we used to. I used to sit in on phone call. I would have access to sit in on phone calls during an outage event,
mm-hmm.
and I could kind of hear from the horse's mouth, so to speak, what was going on. And then with my background, I'm able to digest that a little bit differently and then help with the communication, hopefully, if we're getting the right info. Nowadays, I don't get that. It might be just township managers, for example, that are invited, and they don't always attend, and they don't always give us, we don't always get feedback until everyone else, the typical consumer does. And we're just kind of sitting there saying, what the heck's going on?
Right.
So that's something that I'm interested in. Because before you joined, the smart meter program and communication, the program I'm doing that I mentioned when, I don't know if we were on the call officially on or not, but the grad program I'm doing talks about the communication time or response time when there's I'll say the traditional method versus the smart meter method, or something similar to a smart method. And it's drastically reduced when you look at how they break it down into its parts. And it's really interesting. So that once I finish I might be finished this program by the time we get Pico in front of us, depending on how fast I can move. But I think that'll probably generate a few more questions as well with respect to how they communicate in the smart meter program and other aspects of this that are a little different but still related.
Aren't you on the emergency management committee, Dan?
I am, or at least I was last year.
Whatever its name is, yeah.
The interesting, not to digress too much, but the emergency management committee meets maybe, I think when I was on it, it was the first time they met in at least a couple of years. They meet very infrequently to go over things. I like that committee is very interesting. There's a lot of overlap, obviously, in certain things, but the group meets very infrequently about things. But that's one that I think, in terms of reliability issues during storm events, there's obviously an overlap in terms of emergency management, emergency response, and Pico issues.
So I know from working with the fire company that sometimes in a major event, a storm, you hear things that normally wouldn't be communicated to the public, such as, Pico, if the winds are high, their crews can't go up in the air on bucket trucks for
Right.
safety reasons, which I can understand, but
Mhm.
and that slows things down, of course.
Did sort of an aside, but it's still Pico. Did anyone else get a letter? Because this relates to communication. Did anyone else get a letter from Pico related to their gas distribution system in the last, say, month? I can't remember when it was, but we got a letter. My house, we got a letter from Pico saying they were coming to Lower Makefield Township, and they were going to. It sounded very invasive. They were going to dig up the gas mains, including the lines that connect to our houses. They'd have to get into if we had meters in our basements, they'd have to come into our basements, and they were going to pull the meters outside of our houses and install them there. And it was all going to happen almost immediately.
If you ever want a bigger gas line, you got to tell them, and they'll do it.
Yeah.
Now's the time to upgrade a gas line if you want to get a bigger one when they do that stuff.
Yeah, no, I get, but I expected to see a lot of people on social media say what's going on, because this letter sounded very invasive, but I haven't heard boo from all but just a few people. So I'm half convinced it might be. I don't know if it's real or a scam at this point, because I haven't seen anyone say boo about it. I was going to reach out to Ted because of that, but I wanted to check with this group. See,
No,
I
I
know
didn't
it's
say
not
anything.
electric, but it's still Pico. So
Oh yeah.
No,
It's usually a small area that they do at a time.
Yeah.
Like I don't think it's too big of an area, and I think you should be able to go to their website and find out where they're actually doing the work, because I know
Okay.
they have to give public notice on stuff like that.
I live in Yardley Hunt, and we don't have gas, so there's no gas laid on here. So a letter like that would have gone straight to the recycling. But anyway, yeah. No, I haven't seen that. Well, anyway, the first item on the agenda was to how to further engage Pico, particularly on communications. And what you're saying makes sense. An email to Mr. Ferguson, we get Pico in and we can talk more about what they can do for us with an emphasis. I think the emphasis should be on communications. Letting people know what's going on.
I think everyone agrees. That's the number one issue we have. All the other stuff, sort of the more technical. I'll just generically say the more technical stuff is very important, obviously, but most people, not that they don't care, is just not something they're all that interested in. They want to make sure that when they flip the switch, the light turns on, and they want to know if it's not going to turn on, why not, and when is it going to work. So communication is number one. All that other stuff about programs they're going to have or when they're going to do things is great, and it's all stuff we'd like to hear. But communication is number one to keep their frustration level down as much as possible, and just let people know what's going on.
Just looking over the notes from the last meeting just to see if there was anything else. Jason, you had gotten an updated, or Dan, I guess, somebody got an updated generator registration list. So do we want to, I think, maybe even mention that? I mean, in some form or another, or, it's up to the Board of Supervisors, but it looked like the last several years looked like a pretty significant investment was made by residents on that.
Yeah.
And it may be worth you guys reminding Ted when he's in front of the BOS about the investment individuals in the community have made. I just think it would be important to acknowledge that and let him reiterate his conversation with me about that topic. But it was significant dollar amount, right, Jason? I don't remember off the top of my head.
Yeah, neither do I. I think it was something like well over 100 units in a year or something like that.
Yeah, I think from the list that was sent out, which actually, I think I may have said it in an email.
Yours was the latest one, wasn't it, John?
Mine was the last one on the list. So yeah, it was up to date because my generator installation has only just been finished. And it works, by the way. We had a brief power outage last
Yep.
week and the generator started.
We did too. Yeah.
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 So yes, generators. And if you do the math, and if we used, I think you said $6,000 per installation. I know if I could have got what I've got for $6,000, I would have been very happy. But it's more like 10,000. But whatever. The investment by the community it's up around $3 or $4 million. Yeah.
Yeah.
And I think it was driven by the other topic, which was the communication in the outages. I don't think they were separate issues. I don't think a lot of people over the last several years decided to invest in generators because, just because. I think there was genuine concern about the system, and it might be a good place to launch a conversation with them into all these other topics. And
Absolutely.
I think, yeah, sorry, Dan, go ahead.
No. I 100% agree with you. If at the very best, right? If we want to give them the benefit of the doubt, at the very best, there's a perception problem. That the reliability of the electric grid in Lower Makefield is such that a lot of people feel the need to go get generators, and then if that's the best case scenario, and that's not what you want to have, right? And from there it goes into the reality of the situation, whether or not it is reliable or not, and whether or not all these generators are warranted. But that means at some point over time, enough people have heard that reliability is not that great in town, so they need a generator, which is not a good thing from a PR perspective for PECO, and not something we in the township want to deal with.
Last year in 2020, it was 181.
Wow.
And then this year, so far, we've had 85 permits. 2019, it was 74. 2018 was 140.
Yeah, I know I counted over 500 on that list. So yeah, that makes sense. I just wanted to move things along here. I'm not sure what you can see on your screen. I clicked on
Makefield Highlands.
Okay, yeah, I was looking at, yeah, good, okay, good. The reason I put it up there is because if you go to the township website, which is what you can see on the screen there, there's nothing really to direct anybody toward what to do in the event of a power outage.
Good point.
And if you try to find the minutes of the Electric Reliability Committee, for example, it's very hard. If I clicked on it now and tried to find it, I think I could put boards and commissions that may come up there. Oh, Electric Reliability Committee, but if I click on Electric Reliability Committee, nothing happens. I've got to go further down, and there we are. I do have, but there's nothing there, for example, to show anybody what to do in the event of a power outage. A link on the home screen to the PECO outage map, I think, would be very useful.
That would be. And to your point, the only way we have to do that now is when that municipal services drop down on the top there. You have to it's too many steps, I think. You got to go down to the utilities at the bottom.
Yeah.
And then you have a list of utilities, which includes PECO. You got to scroll down a little bit.
Water, sewer, gas, electric, yeah, PECO, yeah.
Then that brings you to the PECO homepage, and then you got to find it from there.
Then you're there, but it's way too
too many steps. Yeah.
Yeah, too many clicks to get to PECO, and then if you want to get to the outage map, you can click on outage with PECO, and then you can see. Well, at least
you're half a dozen steps in there by now. But at that point, though,
to get to the outage map, it's you can find it somewhere. Current outages. It should be our view outage map. Here we go. Yeah, way too many clicks. Then you get a nice box saying how you use it. Well, that's great. But anything around here, by the way? I don't think there is. I'm just looking. Nowhere.
Not yet.
Not yet. Is that your house? You're not up by Knocker Mixon, so no. Anyway, so the reason we're saying that, I'll say, you know, stop the share. Let's stop the share. Back to here. Yeah, I would very much like to get something on the, and you brought this up a couple of meetings ago, Jason, about putting more information on the township website. It shouldn't take 3, 4, 5, 6, 7 clicks to get to where you want to be. The outage map is very useful, I think, anyway. But that's, and a lot of people.
No, we could look to put that. I'm no web designer, I'll say that, but we got Ready Bucks on the front page. We could put something not all that.
So why don't we
different.
make a list of some sites where we should put on the webpage and then make a recommendation to the board?
Yeah. So Jason, to your point, I think I used to be on the EAC and I was a liaison to the EAC. They have, admittedly haven't looked at their site in a while, but they have, where are they? They've had some stuff on their website in the past similar where it's like useful links. So if people are thinking of looking at this committee website for things related to this committee, then the useful links would absolutely be the Pico outage map, right? Even that's still a little deep into the system.
Yeah.
For I think usefulness in a pinch when someone is a resident is trying to figure out how to get there if they don't know how to get to Pico directly. So it could still be, I think it would make sense to put it not only on the ERC page, but also somewhere up front that takes, maybe you're not clicking, you're just scrolling to make it faster, to your point, John.
Yeah. And of course, the recommendation about calling Pico, don't delay. You should call them, even if you have been told by Pico that you have an outage, call them, report it. Apparently, that seemed to be very important, according to Ted, that regardless of what the smart meters are saying, it helps them if they get confirmation from residents that their power is out. So,
John, on the generator data, I had a question I know Jason have been looking at this a lot. What would be really interesting from a data analysis perspective would be to see where those generators are or have been installed, to see if there's a pattern in terms of location, if there's a specific circuit that seems bad over the course of last 5, 6 years, whatever it may be, to see if there's a pattern as to where those generators are being installed, to see if maybe there's a circuit or a small piece of a circuit that's just there's continued issues, because that's where the people are willing and to spend the most money to have a reliable service, is because they keep losing more power. So that's sort of a reverse method for figuring out where we're having the most reliability issues, is where are people spending the money to improve reliability. I don't know if there you go, buddy. Welcome to the team. Just
hi.
To see what we could, I don't know if anyone would be able to do that, but that's when I look at a list of generators and addresses, that's the first thing that comes to my mind, is like, all right, let's see if we can see a trend here.
Well,
Any thoughts on that?
Somewhat cynically, it may just point out the areas where people can afford to put in a generator, so that's because they're not cheap.
No, but I
that.
think like in my neighborhood, where 1, 2, 3, 4, so like 7 of them went in over that period of time that Jason identified.
Mm-hmm.
That was driven by, yes, I agree that there was an affordability issue, but they're not nice to haves if you put one in. You know what I'm saying, John? Like,
Yeah. Yeah, it may do.
But
And Jason,
I
your
think-
neighborhood had a really rough 2020 summer, from what I
Yes.
recall from the data. So I understand that.
Yeah, I'm saying, so, like, regardless of affordability, it was still, it's still a big decision to be made ultimately for something that you might need for 2 or 3 days. It's not like we live on the Gulf Coast where they're getting hurricanes all the time.
Mm-hmm.
You know what I mean?
Jason McFarland, where you live, you've got a lot of service lines behind houses and that, haven't you there? It's an older installation anyway.
We have 25 generators in our neighborhood, which
Yeah.
is a lot. So
Where are you, Jason, again?
down off of River Road.
Oh, yeah, yeah.
Yeah, that's.
Yeah.
But you've got a lot of service lines, secondary lines behind houses, and a lot of trees there behind the houses that can bring those lines down. So, which is why there are a lot of generators down there.
If you use something like MapQuest or something, can't it like highlight all the addresses where these generators are going in?
Well, the best way to do it, Lee, would be to use a GIS program and just put them all on a map. Not necessarily, or Google Earth. You can make a push pin in Google Earth actually, which if you the Google Earth program, not the Google Earth web-based map, you could just put push pins everywhere for all those addresses, and you could see clusters of yellow pins where there's a lot of them. If that's sort of a manual, tough way to do it, it's tedious, but that would show you some of that. The nice way to do it, if we had I don't know what the township has access to from a software perspective, is if we had ArcGIS, we make a spreadsheet, put it in there, and it plots it for you, and then you could do all kinds of different analyses with it. I don't think we have much access to that as a township. It's not always the cheapest software to use. That's something we use.
We can do it manually. We're only talking about a couple hundred.
Yeah.
And we meet every 3 months, so if I'm bored, I'll knock out 5 at a time and go from there.
There you go. So
You're volunteering, Jason?
I think I'm the only one that wanted to play with the data anyway, so.
It's a valid point though. Yeah. If you get clusters of generators, are they in areas that have got the
Well, I think the storyline from that is great, because then with the smart meters and all that good stuff, it sort of starts tying together, I think what we're all trying to say, which is areas of concern. And then it'd be interesting to track those areas over time to see how PICO is performing in them.
that would be, not to put any pressure on you, on Jason McFarland, but that would be something really interesting to have for the BOS meeting. That would be a heck of a graphic to put up. Let me tell you, and show them. Look, here's where we have all these generators.
That's gonna be what,
Say
6
again, I'm
months from
sorry.
now?
Hopefully sooner than that, but yeah. He's gonna do them all the night before.
Can we see it? Jason, can we see it done tomorrow? That way we can look at it over the weekend.
I'm gonna have to get back to you on that one, and we're not gonna vote on it.
I make a vote. No.
Well, at least we do now have the generator list with the addresses on it. So it's a matter of going through that list. I don't know. Anyone else putting their hands up, Lee?
I saw Bernie doing it.
Yeah, I was going to say, at my company, the person who's not at the meeting gets to build the PowerPoint. So
Yeah, you're right. I'll tell Bernie that. Yeah. Yeah, but it is a valid point. And if if Ted Durand is to be believed, then Pico is now able, or is actively looking at areas with repeated outages. Just as brief ones. Remember, he said they're just as interested in the brief outages as they are with the longer ones. Anything less than 2 minutes, they are interested.
They could be indicators, right, John?
Yeah. You know, we started off in 2014 with pocket outages, and that was that took Pico a long time to identify, because that was a manual task for them. But now with smart meters, they should be able to get the information by pressing a button, I would think.
And then the only other thing I have is, if we want to really rile up the residents, we could ask about the relocation of the power lines from their backyards to their front yards.
Yeah, that got Ted's attention when he wasn't going to offer that. I think he was quite adamant, and in his comments on the minutes, it's not going to happen anytime soon. So yeah,
We didn't press him on that. He brought it up.
yeah. So, but yeah, there's a lot of stuff behind the houses around, which is getting pretty old. I don't think George Westinghouse was still alive when it went up, but it probably didn't go up much after George Westinghouse left. And I'm saying Westinghouse as opposed to
Tesla and Edison.
Now, the tree trimming isn't going on that rear property stuff, is it?
They
Because you
do
have
it.
to get, don't you need permission of the homeowner?
They have easements.
Yeah. For the primary.
Doesn't mean they
line,
do it, but they do have easements.
Yeah, they do. I know.
I have my letter right here. Let me see what it says. Blah, 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 blah. It just says the work will begin in the near future and may be required at your property. Pico's tree service contractor will perform the work. They've been trained for utility work and will prune to promote tree growth away from the power lines and equipment. So it doesn't specify.
But it does say they may need to come on your property, right?
Yeah, again, it says the work will begin in the near future and may be required at your property.
Mm-hmm.
Pico's tree service contractor will perform the work. They've been specifically trained for utility work and will prune to promote tree growth away from the power lines and equipment.
Yeah.
That's it.
But to your point, Dan, yes, they do have access to the easements, particularly for the primary lines. You know, the higher voltage stuff. I guess 5 kV and above, which is running behind the houses. They have to get to that.
Yeah.
So
their main issue, one, people don't like Pico going behind their houses typically, but two, there are a lot of what I'll call easement encroachments with fences and pools and other things that make it difficult for them to do their jobs behind the houses. I personally would never buy a house with utilities behind it just because, but that's the story they'll tell you. But they do have access in a pinch if they need to. So
yeah.
Over private.
Well, they own the lines, right? I mean,
the easement language is typical, and this is very generic response here, but usually they have center line of the aerial conduit, and it's usually about a 10-foot wide easement that they would take as a utility easement, where they have access to get in there and clear. In my neighborhood, this was amazing. I got a copy of the easement for my neighborhood because we have a mix of front of property and back of property utilities in my neighborhood. The easement was written to include the entirety of the neighborhood, not 10 feet from the curb or anything like that. It includes your house. And I contacted Pico about this maybe 10 years ago, and they said, yeah, we can put a transformer on your house if we wanted to. I said, no, you can't. They never changed the language, but I have a copy of the easement that says just that from the 1950s. It was so the easements may not be point of all that is the easements may not be as up to date as they should be, but generally speaking, they do have access to do what they need to do to keep things clean and safe.
The reason I'm asking the question is, back in my old town on Long Island, it was all rear property. And the Long Island Lighting Company, whoever was the utility, had an easement, but they could not go over your private property to get to it. They would have to access it unless they got your permission, but otherwise they would access it from, let's say, the main street and walk down the length of the easement. So I don't know if that's the way Pico handles it.
Yeah, they do. They do. Well, at least I've seen Pico doing that down by the river. They go in off of River Road or off of Black Rock, and what are the other roads around there? Manor. I've forgotten the names of the roads. I've stopped driving a fire truck. I used to know every road and every name. Now I'm totally forgotten. So anyway, yeah, they have to get there. I mean, it's just no two ways about it. If the primary line is down behind someone's house, then a lot of people are suffering until Pico get back there and fix it. So, which brings us to the other thing, which a lot of people overlook, is the Pico advice on the right tree in the right place. Asplund wouldn't have to go around cutting trees down if the right trees are put in the right place at the time.
Yeah.
We got, Pico didn't plant any of those trees, but now they're responsible for trimming them and keeping them away from the lines. So I'm not sympathetic to Pico by any means, but their advice on the right tree in the right place is something we shouldn't take lightly, really. Even though for the most part it's too darn late. The trees are there, and the pine trees, which grew very, very quickly, have a root system, and the root system is somewhat like a pencil standing on its end. One good gust of wind and down they come. Mm-hmm. Anyway, right tree in the right place. I did include that in the agenda, and I think that's something that should go. You should be able to find the link to that on the township website.
And is the Board of Supervisors only going to do one meeting in August, which is typical?
That's what I've been told. I believe we'll have the second meeting in August. Last year we had 3 or 4 meetings in August, and about the same in July, but this year we're having one in July and one in August.
Okay. All right.
Okay, so in summary,
I think this board is making progress, Chairman Kingdom. I really do.
Yeah.
Under the circumstances, we got the meeting.
I'll certainly go ahead and pen an email, which I'll pass around us all before it goes to Kurt Ferguson, the township manager, and we'll take it from there. The big thing is to keep the dialogue with Pico going. If we don't have Pico involved in our conversations, we're just generating interest among ourselves. We're not really helping anybody.
My only concern to the group is that, like, reading the minutes and everything, we're like largely down to tree trimming and communication. But I want to make sure over time, when we continue to meet, that we're getting all the information we can about the grid and the actual infrastructure too. Yeah. We're kind of having Ted's conversation, I feel, and I just want to be, and that's fine, because I agree we have to keep communication going, but it's not just about tree trimming and communications. But for now, it's fine.
We do know that if you get too close to home base with Pico, in other words, what's going up there, what are you putting in, where does this go, where does that go, they just clam up. It's they claim federal security laws and so on and so on.
No, I understand, but just for the long-term view, I'm not talking about short-term.
Yeah. I 100% agree with you, Jason. Because I mean, the communications, tree trimming, that type of stuff it opens the door to conversations. I think they're easier conversations to have, which creates a bond, sort of, kind of creates a relationship, right? And then you can use that not only to see what they're doing from a reliability perspective, see if they're interested, what they can and can't tell us based off of CEII issues that you were talking about, John. But at the same time, I'm also interested long term in, when we see the evolution of the grid from, the 120-year-old grid that we have to smart meters, to people getting generators, to people getting solar panels, and being the new term these days is prosumer. So they're a producer and a consumer when it comes to electricity if they have solar panels or smart items in their house. So I'm very curious as to what Pico, after all that reliability is number one, but I'm also very curious about where Pico's going with that other stuff as more people start to make the transition to electric vehicles and other things that we see are hitting the market so quickly around here. Because I think Lower Makefield's going to, not the earliest adopter. We're not, let's say, a California here, but we do have some pretty early adopters of that type of technology. So I'm curious to see what they're going to do to support that too.
Yeah, I agree.
Oh. Incidentally, just as an aside on the circuitry and what they won't tell us, it's not too difficult to, when you walk down any of the streets and roads around here, and you walk past power poles and you see some of the markings on the poles, the abbreviation for Woodburn, for example, is pretty obvious, which means that circuit is coming from Woodburn, which highlights the fact that Pico's boundaries aren't constrained by the municipal boundaries. They have substations many miles from here which are providing power to this area. So, and of course you can look up in the air and see what's up there and figure out what's going on. And so I always find this hiding behind the
CEII is the acronym you're looking for, John.
Yeah, hiding behind that always amuses me, because damn it, all you got to do is wait for daylight, walk out and have a look. Yeah. And anyway, sticking dead trees in holes and stringing wires between them, we got to get beyond that somehow, because that's really what we do when we put the power system up. Stick a dead tree in a hole and string a wire to it. Anyway, okay, well, I've got my marching orders about what I've got to do. Anything else for the ERC, the way forward for the ERC? Any other items?
Now, when do you think you're going to have your next meeting? What are you all thinking? You going to take the rest of the summer off? Or are you going to come back in September, or want to wait and see what we have the BOS? What are you thinking?
Well, on your calendar, Dan, and I think you set it up. It's every 3 months, the second Thursday of every 3 months. So this is.
Oh, I should have mentioned that related to that. I think our next Board of Supervisors meeting will be a hybrid meeting. So if I misspeak, I apologize, but I know it's coming up where we're setting up a new hybrid system. And we spoke about it a little bit, I think at the last BOS meeting, maybe the meeting before that, where we can have in-person and virtual for people to interact with the board. So if you want to go to a board meeting, you'll be able to do that. Probably have to wear a mask. Yep. But we can also interact with residents via the TVs, where we'll have a real-time Zoom setup so we can talk to folks that way. I think our next meeting might be our first meeting doing that. I'm not positive, but it's coming up very soon. And at some point, we're testing to see how we might be, whether or not we'll be able to roll that out with other groups. So like having this group meet at the township building in the main room, and then have a hybrid setup as well. That may be an option, but I'm not positive about that yet. So I don't want to put too much cart before the horse, but we may be somewhat, I don't want to say, we're returning to a new normal, I think, fairly soon, whatever that may be. But I wanted to make sure you all were aware of that. As
Are we
might have an
able to go
opportunity
back
see each
to
other.
an in-person meeting if we want?
Fairly soon, not maybe not next. Our next meeting might, if we're meeting once every 3 months, our next meeting might be in person if you want to. The township, Kurt, will provide more guidance on that specifically. We're just starting with that approach, so
Mhm.
I would anticipate some hiccups and a learning curve, and hopefully people are patient with us as we work out the kinks. But that's the way we're going at this point. We had a vote to pick up some equipment to improve the hybrid option, or allow for the hybrid option, I should say. So I think it'll be. I think it'll work out nicely. So folks that can't make it to a meeting but still want to have a good public comment have the opportunity to do so.
Yeah.
And folks that want to do the traditional method of coming up to the podium can also do that. So, and hopefully all the supervisors are able to make it and we're all in the same room and we can have active discussions. But that's where we're going. So that's sort of an aside here, but it could affect how you meet in not too distant future, and then how we handle the Board of Supervisors meetings with PICO and others going forward. So I want to make sure you all were aware of that.
Okay, well, I'm assuming that Kurt's office will advise us.
That's
But anyway,
exactly.
on the calendar, it's the second Thursday of every 3 months. So
And I think that's okay. The only reason to have another one is if something comes up that's important to talk
no,
about,
yeah,
or
yeah.
if we get the meeting scheduled with PICO, and maybe you want to have a session really to just kind of a prep session.
Yep.
If you'd like to do that, I know you're doing that in your email, John, but it's
Yeah.
closer you get, maybe more ideas come up, all that other stuff. So just keep, if the group wants to have another meeting ahead of that 3 months out thing, ahead of the regular schedule, just communicate that to each other and and Kurt to get it scheduled. That's all. That's a long-winded way of saying, if you want to have another meeting, go for it.
Sure.
but you don't
Okay.
have to.
But anyway, the as I keep saying, the regular meeting will be on the second Thursday in October. And anything that happens in between, of course, we'll be ready and willing and able. Why not? I've got a generator, so why should I be worried? So anyway, any other items?
Yeah, John, is
Yeah.
Jason going to be doing that push pin type stuff?
Yeah, I'll put something together. Let me look at the data and I'll put something together.
Yeah, I mean, I was joking about dumping it on Bernie, but if you want me to help you, I can.
All right,
There you go. There you go.
I feel guilty.
Yeah. Well, that's why I was hoping you would, Lee. Yeah.
sounds like somebody needs something more to do in retirement.
I don't know. I'm busier now than when I was working.
Yeah. Yeah.
For the
Okay.
record, I don't feel guilty.
You know. Okay.
I make a motion to adjourn.
I second.
All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
All right. Dan can't vote, so you'll stay on, Dan, right? So,
I will
Alright.
sit here all night just staring at a blank screen.
okay.
Why should tonight be any different? No more.
Exactly.
Yeah.
All right.
Okay.
All right, guys. Good
Thanks,
to see
guys.
everybody.
Thank you.
Happy 4th.
Good night,
Happy
all.
belated 4th.
Night.
Good
Yeah,
night.
happy belated